Hello students, this is Mr. Papard. This lecture is the beginning of dramatic music of the Baroque period, and this will be part one of a two-part lecture on chapter 14. So chapter 14, dramatic music of the Baroque, lecture part one. The Baroque period followed the Renaissance period. The Baroque period went from the year 1600 to the year 1750. 1600 to 1750. Let's start at the beginning of this unit by looking at a composer named Claudio Monteverdi. Claudio Monteverdi was a great composer this time period. He worked at a church called St. Mark's in Venice, and he composed basically using two different styles. The first style was called first practice, or in Italian, stile antico. Stile antico just means antique style. And basically, this was more of the polyphonic style that held over from the Renaissance. But there was another style that he used to compose. It was called second practice, or stile moderno. You might see the word modern hiding inside the word moderno. It meant modern style. And this was used for more dramatic solo type music of the time period. Now, let's look at the similarities and differences between the two styles. The stile antico, or first practice, it was polyphonic texture. Remember, poly means many, phonic means sound. Polyphonic texture simply means that there are independent melodies at the same time. And because there were so many independent melodies happening, the music would dominate the text. In other words, sometimes the lyrics to the songs would be difficult to understand because there were so many layers of music happening at the same time. And this was often used for church music. Now, let's look at the second practice. Second practice had a different texture. Remember, homophonic texture was where you had supporting chords under a melody. In other words, the chords supported the melody. We showed you diagrams of this in class. We demonstrated that in class. Remember the video we had where the guitar player was playing and he was singing. His voice provided the melody, the guitar provided the chords. Well, in second practice, this was the same type of texture. You would have instrumental accompaniment that supported a dramatic vocal melody, and because it was a dramatic vocal melody, the text or the lyrics dominated the music. In other words, they wanted a style of music where they could express meaning and emotion by the use of both text and music. And second practice allowed them to do this. And this style was often used for secular music. Remember, secular means non-religious. Now, the second practice was really important because it was used in early opera. What is opera? Opera is basically a stage play where everything is set to music. Even the dialogue of the characters is set to music. But there were predecessors to early opera. A predecessor is someone or something that comes before. For example, President Trump's predecessor was President Obama. President Obama's predecessor was President George W. Bush, and so on. So a predecessor of early opera included intermedi. Intermedi were basically little musical works that were performed in between the acts of plays. This happened even in ancient Greece. It also happened in the Middle Ages, where they would have intermedi. They would have music playing in between acts of a play. Another predecessor to early opera was a madrigal. Remember, madrigal is a style of music from the Renaissance period, and the madrigals would tell stories. There would be songs about love, songs about life, about spring. We listened to some of those. For example, remember as Vesta was from Latmos Hill descending from our previous unit? That's an example of a madrigal. These were just a couple of predecessors to early opera. But the actual first opera that we're aware of was composed by Monteverdi, and it was composed in 1607. It's called La Orfeo. Now, La Orfeo is a story about a man named Orpheus or Orfeo. He's grieving over the death of his wife, and he decides that he wants to go to the underworld to try to bring her back. Her name was Eurydice. And he says in this song that, Tu sei muerta, that if he can't bring her back, that he wants to stay with her. And you'll hear in this song the use of word painting. Remember, word painting is where the music itself supports the meaning of the lyrics. For example, on the word stelle or stars, the music will go high in pitch. On the word abyssi, which is abyss, which is another word for hell, it goes low on the pitch. Also, the same thing on the word morte. Which is morte, which is death. This is the translation of the lyrics. You are perished, beloved, and yet I linger. You are departed from me, are departed forever, never returning, and I remain here. No, no. For if verses may have any power, then shall I seek the most profound abysses, and with my song entreat, which means ask the king of shadows, which of course is Satan. Let me bring thee again to the heavens. Or if this cruel fate still denies me, I shall stay with thee within the realm of shadows. Farewell, earth. Those are the words adio terra. Farewell, heavens. Adio cielo. And sunlight, farewell. Let's listen to this piece. We're going to get it queued up here. You are departed from me. Departed, never returning. I remain here, He went low on abyss, which means hell. And he says, with my song, I'm going to ask the King of Shadows. And so you can hear the passion. He's going to entreat or beg. So he went high in heaven, stelle. The realm of death. He went low on earth, fell on earth. Farewell heavens. All right, that was Tu sei morta from La Orfeo. Now, for your assignment, you're going to have to look at the following two questions about this song. What is the song about? And we just discussed that. And what is the mood of the piece? And there's another video that explains the directions for the assignment. And of course, it will be posted on Blackboard shortly. Now, let's talk a little bit about two types of expressions of music that are used in opera. One is called recitative. The other one is called the aria. Recitative is basically the spoken dialogue of opera. It follows spoken language, but it's sung. The rhythm is free and flexible because it's language. You know how in language we'll just stop and we'll pause and we'll talk, and sometimes we talk really fast and things just flow out of us when we're talking about something important to us. Well, in the same way that speech is expressed that way, so recitative is. For example, you might have something, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe you forgot to turn in the assignment. Please, please get it in on time." Yes. Now that's a silly example of recitative. Of course, that's not from an opera. That's from Music 1306. But that's an example of what recitative sounds like. And the piece we just listened to is actually an example of recitative because it's very flowing and it's almost speech-like, but yet it is expressive. Recitative is similar to rap today. Another style of music used in opera is the aria. Now, an aria is designed to show off the voice and express emotion. And it does have a particular meter or time signature that happens. In other words, you'll have a beat. It does have a formal design. In other words, it has a structure, and we'll talk more about that. The texture is homophonic, and it's accompanied by orchestra. Now, this leads us to an English composer. His name is Henry Purcell. Henry Purcell is really still considered to be one of the greatest English composers of all time. He created vocal dramatic works, and this included a short opera named Dido and Aeneas. It was actually written and performed by Purcell. I'm sorry, it was written by Purcell, but it was performed by girls in a boarding school. This opera tells the story of Prince Aeneas during the Trojan Wars, and he's forced to basically crash land his ship at a city called Carthage, and there he meets Queen Dido, and he falls deeply in love. And they both fall deeply in love. But what happens, Aeneas is forced to leave Carthage, and Queen Dido declares that she can't live without him. And she's talking to her servant and friend Belinda, and basically just saying, Belinda, you even though you're here for me, you really can't comfort me. The music is in the key of G minor, and that's a key associated with death in dramatic music. And what you're going to hear, you'll hear a soprano, you'll hear a string ensemble, and the recitative has a 4/4 time signature, and the aria has a 3/4 time signature. You'll hear something called ground bass. And ground bass is basically just the use of a bass instrument. For example, it could be like a cello or a bass flute or something, playing a bass line, and you'll hear possibly a harpsichord playing music above that. So let's listen to this recitative, Thy Hand Belinda, and When I'm Laid in Earth, from Dido and Aeneas. Darkness shades thee. She's saying, let me rest on your bosom, let me lean against you, I'm so sad. I would have more comfort, but death is invading me. Death is now a welcome guest. Here's where the aria begins. You can hear the bass going down by half steps. And I'm laid in earth when I'm buried. May my wrongs create no trouble within you, Belinda. That's what she's saying. Remember me, she's saying. Remember me, but forget my fate. The questions you have to answer on Thy Hand Belinda, When I Am Laid in Earth. What is the mood of the piece, and how does the music make me feel, and why? Now, as time went on in the Baroque period, things changed in opera. Remember, in the beginning of the Baroque, the idea was that the music would support a simple and natural expression of the text. But as time went on, opera became more and more dramatic. They had dramatic stage effects and really, really complicated music. Staging and costumes and scenery, even on stage, grew more elaborate, more dramatic. And they had, machinery on stage. Well, not on stage, but machinery to help produce those special effects on stage. People would ascend into heaven. They would have earthquakes and fires. In fact, there was one opera staged in Rome where there was the fire on stage appeared so real that people ran out of the opera house. And because of this emphasis more on kind of show than simplicity, this led to the development of what we call bel canto, or beautiful singing, bel canto opera. The singers gained ability and mastered musical technique in a way that had never been possible before, and people would run to the opera houses to hear their favorite singer, and sometimes they wouldn't pay attention to the opera until their favorite singer got up and performed. And the opera singers, they had fans just like singers today. And because of this major change in opera, this caused there to be an argument that still goes on to this day: is opera about drama, or is opera about music? The most admired singers at this time were castrati. Now, castrati were men who had been castrated, and because they were castrated, their voice didn't change. But as they went ahead and matured, they had the lungs of a man, but because they were castrated, their voice did not change. So they would have basically a voice that sounded much like a woman, and they could sing very powerfully, and they were very popular. And so it was a big money-making thing, and fortunately, that is a practice that has passed. Also, the late Baroque opera led to the growth of a prima donna. Now, today we may say a prima donna is a woman that just thinks she's all that and wants all this attention, but the original use of prima donna, it really means first lady. And the prima donna usually had the main female role in Baroque opera. Now, that concludes part one of Dramatic Music of the Baroque. Part two is going to switch the focus a little bit from opera to religious music. Thank you.